Hi, this is Ron Kincher with Muddy River News, and we are joined by Colonel Frank Fuzzy Furr, retired colonel with the United States Air Force, and he will be speaking in Quincy at the History Museum, Quincy Museum, coming up in a few weeks on the 18th of October. So, are you looking forward to your trip to Quincy, sir?
I am. I haven't been there before, and looking forward to it. I've had people who have said, "Oh, an interesting place to go," and I said, "Yeah, I feel pretty good about going back there because I like to travel, and that's certainly a place that I haven't been to, and getting to see that part of the states is nice."
Well, I think liking to travel is an understatement for for what your career has entailed. So I'm going to kind of let you explain because you were, I mean, you had a great career in the Air Force, obviously, but it kind of took a turn in the 50s, right? Because you were a part of, I was like the cutting edge of spycraft or something along those lines with the Air Force, correct?
Well, yeah, the 50s were certainly a cutting edge of that. I didn't join the U-2 program until 1971.
Okay.
So I came in still with the Cold War going on and an awful lot of activity going on. And actually, when I came to the program, I felt that I was probably fly the U-2 for maybe 3 or 4 years, and it would probably be retired because that's certainly what they were thinking about in those
Mhm.
with the SR-71 coming on board as well as the satellite activity that we had going on.
Well,
But
can you just tell us what the U2 is?
yeah, the U-2 is a 104-foot wingspan glider with a big engine in it, I guess is the easiest way to
Mhm.
explain what it is. But it was developed back in the 50s, 55, 56 was the first flights of the U-2. And of course, in 1960, Gary Powers was shot down over the Soviet Union, which created a pretty big headache for President Eisenhower at the time. And it was kind of the start of more action than we probably had visualized for the U-2. They figured it would fly for a few years before being detected. It actually flew for almost 5 years before they shot down the first one. And it was shot down based upon the fact that we didn't realize that the Soviets had extended the altitude range of their ground to air missiles.
So how did they, so there's just one U2 to start with, right? Is that correct?
No, no, no. We built 55.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. 31 of them went to the Air Force. 24 went to the CIA.
So how many of those were deployed at one time?
Generally, you had two or three of the aircraft deployed at different bases of where it was. A lot of the early ones that were built over that time frame
Mhm.
and to get to the 55 were being used to train pilots as we were developing the program.
So you were a pilot of these U2s, correct?
Yeah.
And okay, and you would go up to 70,000 feet roughly, give or take a foot, and look down upon the ground below. I don't know what you probably just binoculars, right? I'm sure you can see all the way down there.
Yep, you can
Not
see from there.
I know, I'm teasing. And then you would basically spy on the persons you were told to spy on. Is that correct? Just to see what kind of activity was going on?
I was flying the truck, if you want to look at it that way.
Right.
There, the equipment that was doing the spying. Visually, the pilots in the U-2 from around 70,000 feet, you have a good view, as you can see behind me on the screen there. You've got a good view, but you haven't got a detailed view of much at all. You can see things happening if it's at night, especially uh, flying the U-2 in the Vietnam War area. We could watch the missiles being launched from the ground coming up towards aircraft. And
Now,
so you
could
could,
you be seen? Could I see you from the ground though?
no,
Okay, so you were basically invisible to a degree.
airplane was black. Airplanes are still black.
Mhm.
And sky above is when you get above about 65,000 feet, becomes very black above you, and so you're kind of invisible up there.
So I'm assuming there's telescopes or something or cameras that are recording everything that's going on beneath you.
Correct.
And that then you land and transmit it, or is it transmitted live back to home base?
Oh, well, now we're getting into the real interesting part of this. The U-2 was going away, as I said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
We all felt that Vietnam was going on, and some smart people said, "Hey, we've got electronic equipment on the U-2 gathering up signals intelligence, or in other words, signals coming as well as voice type of information that is being collected on the airplane, but we're bringing it back. So it's useful, but it's not useful for real time type of intelligence needs." So a company out here in Salt Lake City, Sperry at the time, started building data links, communication links between different things, and they decided in the Pentagon to try to put a data link on the U-2 to be able to transmit the information it was receiving back to a ground station in near real time. So that took place while we were in Vietnam, or flying missions in Vietnam, and we were actually flying out of Thailand for those missions. And so the airplane would be flying in an orbit somewhere, gathering information day or night. In the intelligence world, both the signals intelligence as well as imagery. And so the system became very tactically
Mm.
useful at that time. And to highlight that, the fact that the U-2s were flying up there and gathering information as the North Vietnamese aircraft were taking off to come intercept different formations coming in, we were intercepting those radio calls between the base and the airplanes, and able to then, the guy on the ground was listening to this, and he had a controller, a fighter controller sitting next to him. He would pass the information on to those guys, and they then would be able to tell the fighters where the other fighters were coming up to intercept them.
Okay.
So it was a real-time system at that time. We later continued to develop the system to be able to do not only the signals, but also the imagery itself. In other words, using digital cameras or radar systems to be
Are
able to
these
image.
planes are these planes or something similar to these planes being used today?
Same airplanes are being used today.
Okay, so how
The ones built back in the early days, they're newer.
correct, but so how critical are they to the decisions, the Joint Chiefs or whoever are making about what's going on in the Middle East and what's going on over in Ukraine?
Um, I I'm not in the operational world today, but I certainly surmise that the aircraft are certainly being used in a very critical role going on within Israel right now and in the Mid East, because we have operations out of Akrotiri, Cyprus, a British base there called RAF Akrotiri, and we have been flying there over 40 years,
Right.
operating out of there. And so I'm almost positive those aircraft are extremely busy right now.
So
And
how okay,
too.
so how quickly can you get to you leave Cyprus?
Sure.
How quickly do you get to 70,000 feet?
Oh, about 32 minutes.
Okay, so it takes you all to get up there. And then when you're up there, what type of activity are you looking for? Just where the bad guys are, or is it
You have a planned route that you're flying. And so that route is planned by the intelligence world and mission planners to give you the best location for what they think your targets are for that mission.
mm-hmm.
Or if it's just gathering signals intelligence, then you're generally in an orbit, in an orbit designed to be able to be in the vicinity of those radio signals. So the U-2 reaches out almost 300 miles of being able to listen to signals.
How can that so this I was under the assumption that there were drones doing this type of work now.
We are.
So they work in conjunction with the U2?
They work in cooperation, I think that would be a better
Okay.
word.
Okay. And then how is it what you're gathering differs from what we see on Google Earth? I'm talking like, is it just real time with the U2 versus?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Imagery wise, it's certainly a lot closer than what the satellites are orbiting. And so the other thing that you have to realize when you are flying in an orbit or on a mission that is described on a map, then you're collecting in real time. And if something happens, you can come back around immediately and give the guys on the ground a chance to look at that again. They can tell you, hey, we'd like you to back and turn and get back in this
Mm-hmm.
location.
So they're pretty. So the U2s are pretty agile.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. Now, what physical requirements did you need to have in order to fly at 70,000 feet?
You need a spacesuit to
You
start with.
did. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, you sure do. You
So obviously,
wear a full plate, a full pressure suit is what it's called. Yes.
yeah. Okay. So did you have to ramp up to be able to fly at 70,000 feet?
You pre-breathe for a good hour, hour and a half to get the nitrogen out of your system
Okay.
because nitrogen creates bubbles, and so they create the bends. And
Mm-hmm.
you want to keep yourself from doing that, so you pre-breathe 100% oxygen for an hour, hour and a half, depending upon you, and then you're always breathing 100% oxygen while you're flying.
And then when you land, do you have to go through a similar process before you can go hug your wife?
No, really. The main thing you want to stay awake a little ways and get some movement into you to try to get the oxygen flowing again to get it back within your body. Yes,
So when
but
you so when you come to town on the 18th and speak at the museum, what is the focus of your discussion? Is it going to be all about what you have done, or is it what we're facing now, or a combination thereof?
combination thereof. I'm certainly going to cover the history of the program, which is very interesting, and then lead people into hopefully discussions that they can ask me questions about what's going on or what has gone on in different times. I grant you everything that I say uh, in my presentation is unclassified and comes from open source documents. So
Well,
when
I would hope so.
we fly at 70,000 feet. Uh,
Uh-huh.
we don't talk about how high we really fly.
Is it almost kind of funny now when you fly on a regular aircraft to come to Quincy? It's like, oh, that's only at 30,000 feet. I've been to 70,000, and you're not
Well, you
really.
get up and go to the bathroom, which is real nice. So,
Hey, Colonel, safe travels to Quincy. I'm sure a lot of people will be there to see you at 11 o'clock. I'm sorry, not at 11 o'clock, but on the 18th for your talk at the Quincy Museum. And thank you very much for your time.
Ron, I really, I believe in the aircraft. I believe in how we are collecting intelligence, and I'm always glad to come educate people on what is taking place. And
And
so I
that
look forward to it.
that is Colonel Frank Furr on Muddy River News.